So I didn't know what I was gonna do. I remember getting off the Greyhound bus, going into the station, and then like sitting there for a very long time just trying to figure out what I was gonna do. Now when I came back to town, I didn't inform my ex that I was back in town. I don't know why I did that then, but it wasn't like I was able to like that I wanted to stay where he was staying, which was with his parents, or even able to, you know. So that was all, that was out of the question, and I didn't want to anyway. So what I ended up doing was just getting on my phone and just looking up shelters. I felt like I didn't have no other option. I could have stayed down in Cincinnati and reached out to other family members for help, but I felt like this was something I needed to do on my own. You know, like I needed to figure this out on my own. So I just looked up other shelters. One thing I've come to know about Indianapolis, Indiana, you know, after living there for damn near 10 years, is that it's not a lot of helpful programs for the homeless, which is sad because as big as Indianapolis is, Indianapolis sucked when it came to like figuring out programs that could help me get housing and, you know, keep me from being literally on the street. And it's literally everywhere I went downtown Indianapolis, I saw a homeless person. And it's so sad. It's really sad because I would see a lot of people talk about homeless people. Like how they need to get their stuff together, they need to find a job. You're the reason why you're homeless. You got yourself in this situation. But it's like you don't know people's situations. Like how are you gonna speak on something like that? You don't know what they've been through. As a side note, when I was younger, my dad used to take me a lot of different places when I was a kid. And we would pass a lot of homeless people. And my dad would always give them something. Give them, whether he had a little bit of change in his pocket or we were near a restaurant, he would take that homeless person and give them a meal. Or he would find a way to help them. And I strive to do the same if I can. I highly encourage anybody, if you have the means, if you're well off yourself and you have the means to give back, do it. Do it. You are out driving and you see a homeless person with a sign up and you have a couple of dollars in your little like change holder or whatever. Go ahead and give back. It's hard to tell who really needs help and who doesn't, because I know a lot of people out here, they'll have signs, you know, saying that they're homeless and they really don't be, or like they need money for food but they're well off, you know. It's hard to tell nowadays because there's some scammers out here. That's basically what I'm trying to say, is some scammers out here that will scam people out of money and make people believe that they're homeless when they're not. You know, I could get why people are reluctant to help, but at the same time, you know, what's a couple of dollars? You know what I mean? What's the rest of your change in your pocket? Especially around this time of year, it's always good to give back. Like I just gave out 10 different coats. Like a Burlington, literally, it was just spare of the moment. Like a Burlington coat factory literally opened up around where I live at. I literally just bought like 10 coats and gave it to like my nearest transitional housing place. I went in here and I seen all the coats and I was like, you know what? I heard that it's gonna be a brutal winter this year. Let me just get a bunch of coats and give it back to transitional housing. I picked out 5 kid coats and I picked out 5 adult coats that was unisex, that men and women can wear. So I just, like, growing up, my dad had instilled those morals and values in me, that if you see someone in need, give back. You know, if you can, don't put yourself in a horrible situation because you want to give back, but make sure you're stable enough to be able to do that. Don't feel bad if you're not in a position to give back. Just better yourself to where you can be in that position. Because I can't tell you how many times I done watched YouTubers give back and I wanted to be like, oh man, I wish I could do that. This was years ago. I would watch YouTubers give food to the homeless, but I would find other ways to help back. Yeah, I couldn't help back money wise. I could go to my nearest like soup kitchen or like food pantry and volunteer. You can volunteer your time, your services. It don't always have to be like donating. You can donate your time. Well, I see a lot of celebrities do that. They go and stop in like food kitchens and they serve food. I've seen Obama serve food to like a cafeteria once. Volunteer your time is enough. You know, as long as you're just doing something, it's what matters. I caught up a whole bunch of shelters and they were full. They will always tell you that they're full when they're really not. They just don't want to take any more people in because there's already a lot of people there, and they might have like 1 or 2 beds, but they will tell you that they're full. The thing you have to do is, if you're really in need of help, keep calling them places every day. Call them, harass them, and let them know that you're serious and you need help, you know? So for the longest time, I was calling, and I would literally call all damn day. I don't care. I'd harass the hell out of the people because I had nowhere to go. So I would call and call and call and call and call. And I would go to places that was open 24 hours and call. Just be up all night calling these shelters. Like, some places that I went into that was open 24 hours. Diners, look for the nearest like little family-owned little mom and pop diner that's open 24 hours. Hospitals, if you go into the emergency room side, open 24 hours. They have to be. And you know, you go to a library until it closes. You can go to like a Walmart, you know, and just chilling there. Just look for 24-hour places. And that's what I did. And I had friends that I couldn't stay with for whatever reason, whether they had roommates and they couldn't take nobody in, or they lived with their parents, or just for whatever reason I couldn't stay with them. You know, be reasons like that. But I did have friends that I was lucky to be able to hang out with during the day. But when the night came, you know, I'll be able to sleep in their car during the day or whatever. But when the night came, I was up and I was calling shelters all night. And it was hard for a while. But I eventually got a hold of one person at a shelter. And it was the Women and Children Shelter in Indianapolis. And I called them like a million times. And I literally called every fucking day until they said they had room. And I went there immediately. I called up my friend who had a car and she took me there. From the time I was 25 to the time I was 27, I was on and off homeless, living in a shelter, on and off, you know, or I was renting a room or something like that, on and off. She took me to the shelter, and the 3 shelters that I lived in, 3 live-in shelters. There's live-in shelters, there's day shelters, and then there's the night shelters. And the difference between all 3, really quickly, the day shelters are only for the day. They close at a certain time, probably usually around 5 or 6 p.m. And while you're there during the day, you can get set with a case manager that can help you with housing. They can give you toiletries or whatever you need hygiene wise for free. As long as you're set with their program, you're welcome to all their amenities that they have. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner until they close. You can also wash your clothes and take a shower in the day shelters. Not all day shelters are gonna offer all of these type of amenities. Some people might let you shower there, some people might not. Some people might let you wash clothes there, you might not be able to in some. It just depends on your neck of the woods. But where I was at in Indianapolis, I was able to, in the live-in shelters. A live-in shelter is basically, they take all of your personal information, everything about you, they do a background check on you to make sure that you're not like a felon or anything like that. Because a lot of shelters won't take in felons. Like if you have, you know, a felony or anything like that or anything, they will do background checks to make sure you're not wanted or you're not a felon. And they find out why you're there, whether it's domestic violence or you're just need a place to stay or whatever. So the Salvation Army I went to, it was a women and children's shelter. Initially, what I thought I was going into. They gave me that address. I went there, I did the intake, and then they transferred me over to the back of the building. It was like literally out. I had to leave the building, and there's a whole nother building in the back of that main shelter. It was still Salvation Army, but it was an unmarked building. It looked like an abandoned building on the outside. No one was supposed to know about that building or what it was. And while you stayed there, you could not tell people that you were there or you would get kicked out. Because the whole meaning for that shelter is that it was a domestic violence shelter, which no one is supposed to know about, because a lot of these people was going through domestic violence and either trying to escape an abusive relationship, and they don't want people to follow them or know where they lived. So they could not mark the building as like domestic violence unit, you know, but people that went to the main shelter knew what that building was, and everybody was informed to not say what that building was. But the thing is, that was the first shelter I had ever been in. I came there right after being with my mom, and it was the first realization that I was homeless. And I had a meltdown like 2 weeks of being in there. I don't know why, but I just kept informing my ex that I was there too. Like, I knew every time I had told him what was going on with me, I just knew he just didn't give a damn. But for some reason, I just kept telling him. Looking back on it, like, golly, I literally told him everything that was going on with me. I know he did not give no about what was going on with me. So anyway, like 2 weeks after being in that shelter, I had a meltdown. I was coming back from somewhere, going back to the shelter, and just looking at the building, like walking up to the building, I don't know, I just started crying. Like, I really live here. It was tough. It was tough. And in the shelter, it looked run down on the outside. It may not look as, you know, that great on the outside, but on the inside, it was a lot better. It had a really grand kitchen. It had a TV room, a little kids room, because there was some kids there. And that just broke my heart even more. I mean, when I went there, it was like 25. To see kids there, not only that, teens were there. I had a really close friend that I had met in that shelter who had a son. It just broke my heart that there was actually kids in the shelter, because like when I was a kid, I was fortunate enough to not grow up in a shelter, you know, and it just broke my heart seeing kids there. The kids are actually going through. I'm having a tough time as an adult going through it, and just seeing a kid go through it, it's like everything was nice. The bedrooms were upstairs, and they had like you could room up to like 3 other people. Sometimes you were in a room with like 3 other people. Now, before I had ever became homeless and I was on the verge of being homeless, going to that shelter, I thought it was like how the movies portray it to be. Like you're in one big auditorium type room, and it's like a bunch of cots everywhere. I was so worried because everything I had is all I had. Everything I had on me was literally all I had. And I didn't want nobody stealing it, you know, but it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. My first thought process was that, but going into it, like, it wasn't that. And going into that shelter, I wasn't in the best shape. I wasn't actually in the worst condition I had ever been. Like, I hadn't had much sleep. I had just traveled from Cincinnati to Indianapolis. I was calling up all the people. I was barely eating. I was so stressed. By the time I got to, you know, intake and got settled in, I went to sleep and I slept for a very long time. I was very tired, very hungry. I made like something to eat in that kitchen and I went to sleep. And I slept for a long time, and then the alarm, like a fire alarm, woke me up. Everybody had to leave the shelter and I was still so tired. But I was able to go back in and go to sleep. Later on that day, I saw my roommates. They start coming in, and I had like, initially starting off, I had like 2 other roommates. There was like a whole bunk bed in there. Then there was 2 other beds to the side. So 4 of the people could have been in that room, and then it was my bed. So, but I only had 2 other roommates, and all of them girls. There was just nobody but girls in that whole unit. It was supposed to be domestic violence unit shelter for women. And so I thought it was gonna be okay because it was a women's shelter, you know? But you get all those hormones together and all those emotions, and you know, like get a bunch of girls together in a room all the time. It's gonna be some fights, okay? So it wasn't all as cracked up to be. Like, people were doing some really foul stuff in that shelter. Like, I remember someone had bought ice cream for everybody, try to be nice. But then you had someone hateful over here, found out that they were putting glass in the ice cream. Real thing. Good thing I didn't eat any of that ice cream. I didn't eat any of that ice cream. No one really took a bite out of the ice cream before they saw the glass. So thank God. Thank God. But when I heard about it, they ran the cameras, and of course they didn't tell nobody who it was. While I was there was a ton of rules, and that's how shelters are. They give you a ton of rules. They tell you that your entry date was the day that they take you in, and then obviously, and then your exit date is probably like maybe like 2 to 3 months after that date. So if it says live in shelter, you stay there for a couple of months to 2 or 3 months tops, right? Whereas like a day shelter, you stay there until they close. A night shelter is where you would sign up somewhere like in the daytime to come back at night, and you stay there overnight. However, you go there when it's dark, you leave when it's dark. So you go in there at 9 p.m., it's dark, and then when you leave around 5, 6 in the morning, it's still dark. So it just gives you a few hours to rest. You leave when it's still dark outside. So I've been through all of these, you know, and every single one of them have rules. And I've met a lot of people that decided that they don't want to live in shelters. That they actually, there's some people out here, y'all, that crazy enough, there's some people out here that actually like being homeless, you know, living on their own rules and not having to pay rent, keeping their money. And they don't want to go to shelters either because they don't want to follow their rules. They don't want no rules. They don't want to pay no bills. They actually like being homeless. A couple of friends that are like that. And you might be like, oh, well, then where do they live at then? You know, how do they live? How do they survive? Well, everybody's different. I have a friend that she lives in her car, you know, and the only bill she pays is her car note and gas, and that's it. And I have other friends that live in tents in the woods, and around this time of year they do go to a shelter, but in the summertime they choose to live in a tent and save up their money, and that's how they choose to live. Me, I'm different from all of them. I don't want to live in a car, and I don't want to live in a tent. I get a place on my own. You know, I build my credit, build my life back up, and live on my own, you know? And that's just me. If it's just you and you're just trying to get, you know, something for the meantime and in that long term, then you might find a place that's around $400, $500 rent. And then, but you still gotta pay utilities, and you still gotta buy stuff for the house, and you still need stuff yourself, and you transportation to work, and it's like a lot of bills that rack up. And so I can see why I have friends that don't want the responsibility of paying all these bills. And it's just easier for them to go to a shelter in the winter, and in the spring and summer live in a tent or just live in their car. I just know for me, being in a shelter, I had a lot of meltdowns, a lot of breakdowns, and just not for me, you know. But I appreciated the help. I appreciated all the help that was offered to me in all my times of need. But it wasn't really until I left Indianapolis that I actually got help that I actually needed, you know. And it really took a lot for me to want to leave Indianapolis, because I had been there for so long. I was there from 2008 to like 2015, you know. So I've been there for so long. That was my home. I didn't want to leave it. And I didn't want to make a habit of leaving and leaving, because I can't get my stuff together. So I decided that Indianapolis wasn't helping me. There was nothing holding me back anymore. So I left. After living in the Salvation Army, but before I left, after the Salvation Army, it was basically like one big grand house, but it was split in half. And there was a family on one side, and I had the place to myself on the other side. I was so excited. It was finally something that I got to myself. Although there was a family on the other side of me, I hardly ever saw them, but we did share a porch. And sometimes I would want to sit out on the porch, talk to my friends. And once again, I informed my ex that I lived there. And annoyingly, sometimes, like, he annoyed me because he would always want to come over, like always. Why? and looking back on all of this, I'm like, why was he there all the time? I don't know. But at that time, I had no what to consider him, really. He wasn't a friend to me. I didn't want to be romantically involved with him anymore. It was like he was just there, you know? So I had just got out of that shelter into this place, and I was like finally getting my stuff. It seemed like everything was finally coming together. And I brought my ex back into my life. Like, I kept informing him, this is going on with me, this is going on with me, this is going on with me. I live here now. Like, you could come over. It's like, why did I do that? Like, I had a good job. I had a really good job, paid well. And the only thing is transportation issues. And it was always the problem with me with really good jobs. I would have a really good job, you know, be able to live on my own, make good money. How the hell was I gonna get there though? Like, how did I go from like building my life up, getting back on track, to falling all over again? And I just thought that this was gonna be a pattern for me. I was always gonna fall. How was I gonna get back from there? You know, I always had that problem. And I was like, oh God, I would find a way. I wanted this job so bad, I'd find a way. So I would hit up friends. I would hit up just anybody I could that could take me to work. You know, coworkers, friends, and everybody would sometimes flake on me. Like, oh, I can't take you today. Oh, I called in to work today. I can't take you. Like, and that would affect me, because then I would have to call in to work because I had no way there. I met a coworker who needed a place to stay. He told me he only was going to stay there. He only needed like 2 weeks. And then he would have had enough money to save up to get a place. And the duplex that I had, it had 2 bedrooms upstairs, a bathroom, a storage room downstairs, and a kitchen. And I turned the storage room into a bedroom because it was literally right next to my front door. So it was so much easier for me because I could just literally like turn it into a bedroom and get ready, and then like just leave out my door, like just like, because it was literally right by my front door. It was actually bigger than the bedrooms upstairs. So I told him that he could stay with me for the 2 weeks that he needed to. So he lived upstairs, and he was hardly ever downstairs. I hardly ever saw him. Sometimes he would be on the porch, sometimes, but other than that, I really didn't see him. I worked a lot, so, or I was out with my friends a lot, so I didn't really see him. But when my ex would come over, he would always be like trying to talk to my coworker, and it was so weird because my ex was trying to be a rapper, or he rapped, I guess, a little bit of some, and he was trying to like rap with my coworker. I don't know. They were weird. They were just, but I'm like, you don't even know him. Like my ex didn't even know my coworker. Yet he was so comfortable with like just hanging out with him, just randomly showing up to my house and randomly just hanging out with my roommate, who randomly came to me needing a place to stay when I had just moved into a place. Eventually, I got into a new relationship while I was still in that duplex with a really nice guy. He was a really decent guy. We kind of hit it off like right away, and it was like my life was starting to come back around together. And he had his own place. He had 2 jobs, and he wasn't no little mama's boy. He wasn't living with his parents. The whole time that we were together, we ended up being together for like 3 years, 3.5, 4 years. The whole time we were together, he didn't cheat on me. We were off and on, and even when we were off, he wasn't talking to nobody else, from what you say. So we were supposed to get a place together. That never happened. But I'm not gonna get into that, but we never ended up getting a place together. We always, the whole time we were a thing, we had a place separate from each other. And I thought that was kind of important because you need your space away from your significant other. So him having his own place and me having my own place gave us that space that we both needed, as opposed to my old relationship, being in that relationship for 6 years, waking up to that person and going to sleep to that person every day for 6 years. I mean, we didn't really have no space unless I went out of town to visit my sick father. Eventually I moved out of that duplex. It was because I lost my job. I'm trying to remember. It was because I lost my job. I didn't quit this job. They actually terminated me because of all the tardiness and the days I called off. They did it really sly though. They were really quiet about it. They didn't want to cause a scene. I was really well loved at that job, and there was a lot of outspoken people there, and they were basically like, you know, Beverly, from this point to this point you had called off basically damn near a whole month. You were late, and you know, for 2 weeks straight racked up a whole bunch of like call offs and blah blah blah. And granted, this was back in the beginning of that year, and now we were in the summer, and this is just now affecting me. I was pissed. I was like in that office, I was trying to keep my cool, but I was like, it's literally been 6 months, and y'all are now gonna terminate me for what happened the beginning of the year? Where they do that at? Like, you're gonna terminate me in June for something that happened in January. I wanted to keep it professional, and they did tell me that I could reapply within 3 months if I wanted to, because my work performance was good. It was just my, you know, tardiness. I had racked up too many points. They went off a point system. I had racked up too many points and too many, calling off too many times. So it is what it is. I'll find another good job that's probably closer to my house. But when I went back to the duplex, it was kind of bittersweet because I was, even though I was real well loved at that job, like, I lacked motivation. Like, it was so hard to get there, and then it was like, it was hard to stay motivated while working there. Even though I didn't have a good job performance, it was hard to keep motivated. So I told my landlord, and she was very understanding. You know, I didn't tell her that I had, like, right off the bat that I lost my job. I told her that I needed more time to come up with the rent. And she was understanding because she gave me a lot of time. She gave me a whole month to come up with the rent because I was always on time with my rent. Like, I paid her on time all the time. And so she was understanding. She's like, oh yeah, you need a month? You got it, girl, you got it. And then I said, I'm moving out. Told her I'm moving out because I couldn't find work, but I did have savings that I was surviving on that whole month. I needed my deposit back, and that's when shit just hit the fan. Like, she's like, you're moving out? You didn't tell me you were moving out. You said you needed more time. And I'm like, yeah, I needed more time. Here's your money that I owe you for the month. I'm moving out. She literally wouldn't let me leave. Like, she was like, well, she wouldn't give me the deposit. She said I could go, but she was like, oh, well, the deposit wise, now granted, I gave her was like $300 deposit down for that duplex. She said if I meet her at the bank or something, that she would be able to, she had to go to the bank and I could meet her there and I can get my money. And I said, okay, fine. What bank? Then she said she changed it to something like, oh, well, I don't have time to go to the bank or something. She was like, oh, well, I can mail it to your new house. What's your new address? And I'm like, no, you're not mailing anything to my house. No checks to my house. You're not mailing no checks to my house. I paid you cash money to move in for a deposit. I want cash money back. And this was a private owned landlord, but she was giving me a hard time about this damn deposit, and I needed it. It was $300. So she wasn't giving me my money. Like, she walked out knowing damn well she wasn't gonna give me my money. So I got furious. I got so mad that she had the money. I was like, just reach into your fucking pockets and give me my money. The reason why I could not stay with the guy that I was talking to at the time is because he had a 1-bedroom and he had a child. And he told me this story, which turned out to be bullshit, but that's neither here or there. He told me the story of why I couldn't live with him. He said that he was trying to get his child back and he was going to court trying to get his child back. Honestly, I don't think he wanted that child to begin with. Like, to be able to, like, for his child to live with him, I don't think he wanted his child living with him. I think he used that as just a reason for me not to move in. He might disagree, and that's fine. But all he had to do was just say, like, I don't want you to move in. Like, we were both adults, you know, and I knew that he was going through the courts with the mom, but I don't think it was because of that. I think it was because of the child support. You know, it had something to do with the child support, not because he was trying to get his son. And I was like, back to square one, all over again. Like, how did I go from, like, building my life up, getting back on track, to falling all over again? You have that mindset, you're never gonna progress properly. No, this is the last time that I'm ever gonna need to go in the shelter. This is the last time this is ever gonna happen to me. And you just gotta speak that into existence. And, you know, work to making that not ever happen for you ever again. And boy, did I have to work.